Hi everybody, I'm just going to demonstrate a couple different ways to use verbs. The first thing that I'm going to do is create a cube object, and let's keep it simple. I'm going to add a verb to that object. The verb that I'm going to add is to color, so I'm going to drag that on. I could also add that as a component here. And what I want to do is just look quickly at the verb once we add it. All verbs are basically just simple scripts, and generally they do one thing. The idea of how you build complexity in this is that you have verbs trigger other verbs. So, for instance, we have to color, and in appearance we have to grow. I can also drag to grow into here. The most basic way to use a verb is to simply turn it on by clicking is active, so that when you click play, it is active and does the thing that it's supposed to do, which in this case is grow to about twice its size over the course of 3 seconds. I could also, well, I should note that to color didn't do anything, even though it's attached. That's because it's not active. If I was to make it active, you can see there it goes, gray. I think also a little bit transparent or black. Every time I change this, I'm just clicking as active, and you can see that I'm changing the color values. So I'm going to stop that. But what I want to do is I want to have it grow to color. So to grow to color. Every verb, when it resolves, triggers any other verbs that are placed within the triggered verb array. And the way that you place them in is from the inspector, not from the project folder, but from the inspector. You drag the name of the script into the triggered verb array, and you'll see that it's now there for cube to color. By default, this can get a little bit confusing, especially if you have things changing color in a lot of different ways, and so you have 6 different to color scripts on a object, which just means that you can use notes to self to differentiate between them, because in the triggered verb array it's all going to look the same. So I'm just going to make a note to myself. I'm going to just say that this is makes it red, and I'm going to move my red all the way up here. And what we should notice is now when I hit play, it's going to grow to double its size over the course of 3 seconds, and thank God it actually turned red. Oh my God, if it hadn't, how embarrassing would that have been? So what I can do now is well, just to sort of show, I'm gonna say here in notes to self, I'm gonna say makes it grow. And then what I'm going to do is actually drag the same scripts in. So the reason I'm doing this is just to show that you can use the same verbs over and over again to do essentially different things. In this instance, I'm going to say make it blue. And in this instance, I'm going to say makes it shrink. Originally, the idea was that all verbs would only do one thing, meaning to grow would just grow, and then there would be another one to shrink. The idea there was that it would be really easy to just kind of grab that piece of code and to see just what it does and have really clean scripts that are easy for people that don't like to code to just know what's going on. At the same time, though, it made it kind of annoying to navigate, because there were just too many verbs to be looking at, and it just got really redundant. So what I've done is, or what we've done, I should say, is changed it so that some verbs can kind of do multiple things just by changing the settings, and we try and convey that in the settings. So if you look here, I mean in the tooltip, so if you look here, it says select how much you want the object to grow. A value between 0 and 1, such as 0.5, will shrink it instead. So in this case, I'm going to make it 0.5, not 0.5, but 0.5. I'm going to have this trigger the make it blue script. And I also, when it's done shrinking, I want it to just grow again. Let's just see what happens. I'm going to hit play. Let's see where we end up. There it goes. Whoa! Oops. What did I do wrong? See, this is when you make simple mistakes, then you're like, that's a big mistake. I changed the duration, not the grow multiplier. Perfect thing to do in a tutorial. And I'm just going to hit play. And now it should grow and shrink, and every time it does, it should change colors. Perfect. This is a really basic way to create a looping verb. In other words, the first example, it grew, and then it changed color, and that just sort of happened, and it was done. What we've done here is by having verbs reactivate each other. So, to grow triggers to shrink, triggers to grow, triggers to shrink. You're basically creating a kind of loop or an ongoing animation. So the other thing of note is that I can also trigger, and this is the other thing that I wanted to point out, I can trigger multiple verbs with each verb. So when I say to grow, and when that's done, that is then triggering to color and to grow. I can have that trigger really any of the verbs. If I go to movement and I'm going to say, let's do to blink. So I'm going to go on my cube here, and I'm just going to add to blink, which is going to give me a nice, to blink is just essentially to teleport within a range of values. So I'm just going to set this to, let's see, 10, 10, 10, and I'm just going to drag this into to grow, just to show that you can kind of really add in as much complexity to this as you want. And let's just see what happens. I think that should be fine. All I did was change the X range value in the high range to be higher than 0. Between 0 and 0 is 0. So let's just see what it does. See if it works. It should grow, and then poof, teleport somewhere nearby, or bamf is the kind of cool way to say that. And there we go. Let's see, it should keep going. It'll be a little bit different every time. So that's the basic way of connecting verbs. You create one verb, you have a second verb, and when the first verb resolves, it triggers the second. And again, you can create a looping system by simply having the second verb trigger the first verb again. Especially if you're using any of the timing verbs or trigger verbs, such as to time or to wait. Have a verb do something, wait 3 seconds, do it again, to create these kind of recurrent systems. And the other thing that you can do is trigger multiple verbs all at once, creating a kind of chain reaction. You can also trigger verbs on other objects, but I'm going to save that for a different video because I want to keep it pretty simple in this one. This is really just to say this is the basic functionality of making things work. Thank you.